So let's offer our respects to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Okay. So what did we see in the previous class? Which chapter of the Bhagavad Gita are we in?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. How many sections did we finish?
9, I think.
Yeah, we finished 9 shlokas. And the title of this chapter is Karma Yoga. It has a total of 43 verses. So what was the Falashruti of this chapter? Does anybody remember?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Varsha.
Yeah, it was about a Brahman called Jara.
Uh-huh. So what is the benefit? What is the benefit that we get by reading the chapter? It is especially meant for
Liberation.
And for the one who have
Our
participated,
ancestors will get, we will
For
dedicate to
liberation.
them
yes,
this chapter, then they are going to be benefited by this, reading this chapter.
yes, exactly. So this is especially meant for the upliftment of our ancestors. So if we have a loved one who has passed away and we would like to give them some spiritual benefit, then we can recite this chapter and dedicate the recitation to them. Okay.
So
we
this
have
it's required to repetition again and again every day to
Yeah, the more you do it, the more they
I mean,
get.
or once.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you do it more,
It is not
then they get
related
more
with
benefit.
once some ceremony.
Yeah, no. The thing is,
Okay.
we don't know in what condition they are. We cannot know that. So wherever they may be,
Exactly.
if they are already in the liberated state, then I mean, how it will benefit them, because they've
That we
already
don't know.
attained the
Actually, that we don't know, basically, no.
yeah.
Where they are, what is in the liberated stage and all. But the question
Exactly.
is that chapter should be once with the dedication, or it should be like a Maha Mantra every day we have to for that,
No, you can do it. There is no restriction. You can do it as many times as you want. If you read it once, they will get benefit to that extent. If you read it twice, thrice. So it's not something that you have to. There are people who every day read the Gita, and they have some specific chapters that they may read every day according to what is their favorite chapter. So it's up to you.
Okay.
Okay. But what is important is some reading of the Shastra we must do every day. Even if we are not dedicating it to our ancestors, some reading of the Shastra, if we do every day, no, then automatically Krishna gives us the intelligence to understand.
No, that is the part of life. You can have that daily routine. That is different way. I mean, it's particularly related with some subject, that's why I'm asking this.
Especially for the ancestors, then the more you do, the more they get benefited. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we saw that chapter 3 began with a question by Arjuna, and he says that he tells Krishna that I'm confused now by your instructions, because on one side you are telling me to follow Buddhi Yoga, and on the other side you're telling me to fight the war, which is do Karma Yoga. Now, according to Krishna, Krishna says in chapter 2 that Buddhi Yoga is nothing but Bhakti Yoga, right? But because Krishna is using the word Buddhi, Arjuna has misunderstood it and he thinks that it is Jnana Yoga. So he thinks that Krishna wants me to cultivate knowledge. So he's thinking, if I go to the forest and cultivate knowledge, how will I fight the war? And if I fight the war, how can I go and cultivate knowledge in the forest? So he thinks that these are contradictory instructions that Krishna is giving, and he asked Krishna that I'm confused and please tell me decisively which is the best course of action. So he's separating the two concepts, and then Krishna answers his question in section 2. He says that you have to work with knowledge and detachment. You have to do both, right? Krishna combines both, and he says you have to do both. You don't have, it's not an either or situation. Both you have to do. You have to work in knowledge. So this we saw so far. Today we'll go to section 3. We saw this famous quote on Mithyacharis. And we saw the difference between a Mithyachari and a struggler. One who's a cheater and a struggler. Maybe both have not yet conquered their senses. But the difference between a Mithyachari and a struggler is, although both have not conquered their senses, one is a cheater and the other one is trying. So at least he's genuinely trying. So they are not at the same level. Okay. Our two readers for the day are going to be Ritu Lalwani, right? And Manjari Thakur. Are you all there with us? Can you unmute yourselves?
Hello.
Manjari Thakur, are you there?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so you'll read the translation, right?
For 3.10.
Yes, not yet. We'll begin in a while. And do we have Ritu here? We cannot hear you.
Hello.
Now we can hear you. So you're reading the other text for us, correct? Okay, please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, section 3. Let's read this.
Shall I start?
No, this is actually we have two people who are reading. Ritu will read the other text other than the translations, and you can read the translations.
So I'll read the translation, right?
Yes. Okay,
Shall I
Ritu, are
start
you
with
there?
3.10?
No, not yet. Wait. I'll tell you. Ritu, are you there? Okay, looks like there is some problem in her connections. Anybody else would like to read the other text?
Yeah, I'll go for Shanam.
Okay, thank you, Supriyo. Can you read this?
Yeah, section 3.10 to 3.16. If not qualified for Karma Yoga, practice Karma Kanda. If one cannot perform detached, dutiful work, it is better to follow Karma Kanda section of Vedas. But do it for Krishna's pleasure, all the Vedic duties which prescribed sacrifices, etc.
Okay, so section 1, Arjuna is saying, what should I follow, Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga? Then Krishna answered in section 2 that for you, Karma Yoga is better, do your duty. Now in section 3 says, if you are not qualified for Karma Yoga, then at least do Karma Kanda. Now what is this Karma Kanda? As we discussed, the initial sections of the Vedas deal with Karma Kanda activities. Karma Kanda means we perform activities for our own sense gratification, but according to the according to what is given to us in the Shastra, according to what is given to us in the Vedas. Krishna is saying, if you cannot follow Karma Yoga, then at least follow Karma Kanda. So we'll see this in detail today. Let's hear the
सह यज्ञाः प्रजाः सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वम् एषवोऽस्त्विष्टकामधो.
Now, yes, Manjari, you can read the translation.
Yeah. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all the creatures sent forth generation of men and demigods, along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "By thou happy by this yajana," that is sacrifice, because it is performance, will be bestowed upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation.
So say what Krishna is saying, that at the
The
beginning
purport
of
also,
creation.
Mataji?
Sorry?
No, I thought I am supposed to read the purport also. Sorry.
No, we only do the translations. So what Krishna is saying here is that in the beginning of creation, Krishna has sent forth creatures, that is us, right? All living entities. Plus he has sent demigods, and the process by which we can please the demigods and get our necessities fulfilled. Just as how the parents, when they bring a child in this world, then they take care of all the necessities of the child. In the same way, Krishna has taken care of the necessities of all the living entities. And he's saying, okay, you be happy. Even though the material world is a prison house, but even in this prison house, you be happy by this yagya process, right? What do you mean by yagya? Yagya doesn't only mean the fire yagya, right? Where we put the grains in the fire and we offer it to the Lord. That's not the only yagya. Yagya means any process by which we are dedicating, any process by which we try to please the Lord. So Krishna is saying that in the beginning of creations, I sent all the living entities along with the demigods, and the process which one should follow to please the Lord. And by doing this, you will live happily, he says. So there are different processes for different yugas. We have discussed this before, but now we have it in a chart form. So every yuga has its process for self-realization. It has a recommended process according to that, because the times are different, right? The time in Satya Yuga was very different from the time now in Kali Yuga. So in the Satya Yuga, we have seen the duration is 1,728,000 years. Average human life was 100,000 years, and religiosity was followed to 100%. That was at the beginning of the yuga, right? And the recommended process is silent meditation. But with every yuga, you see the duration is reducing, the average human life is reducing, the religiosity, what percentage of the population and to what extent they are following religious process, that is also reducing. So because of these factors, the recommended process for every yuga also is reducing. So you see the Kali Yuga is called as the Iron Age, the current yuga in which we are. It lasts for 432,000 years. Double of that is Dwapar Yuga. 3 times Kali Yuga is the duration of Treta Yuga, and 4 times the duration of Kali Yuga is Satya Yuga. And the average human life at the beginning of Kali Yuga was 100 years. But as Kali Yuga progresses, then we will see that the average human life will go on reducing, and the religiosity is the least in Kali Yuga. It's only 25%. So the recommended process for Kali Yuga is Hari Nam Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name. In the Dwapara Yuga, it was deity worship, Murti Puja. Treta Yuga was Yagya, fire sacrifices. And as we said, Satya Yuga, it was silent meditation. Now in Kali Yuga, all these processes are still followed to some extent. Yes. So why cannot these processes be followed to perfection in Kali Yuga? What is the problem? The problem is not in the process. The problem is in the Yuga, right? So why cannot we follow silent meditation, yagyas and deity worship to perfection in Kali Yuga? What is the problem? We have discussed this before. So let's see if anybody remembers.
I think silent meditation takes like 60,000 years.
Yes, silent meditation takes 60,000 years to perfect approximately. That's what it took the sages previously. When Valmiki sat in silent meditation, it took him 60,000 years to perfect it. So we don't have 60,000 years. Like the average human life is only 100 years at the beginning of Kali Yuga. So we don't have that kind of time. What else? Why cannot we do silent meditation in Kali Yuga? Any other reasons?
I think fire sacrifices take like some mantras, like something special to light them on fire.
No, that is for Treta Yuga. We are still talking about Satya Yuga. What else could be the reason for one not being able to follow silent meditation to perfection in Kali Yuga? One reason you already gave, Ayush, that we don't live for so long. Any other reason?
Probably a lot of disturbance, and we are too much materialistic, attached to material things.
Yes, exactly. Here, now in Kali Yuga, there is so much disturbance around us that even if we sit and try to meditate in silence, there will be some noise around us that is going to break our meditation, right? The phone will buzz, or there is somebody honking on the street, somebody's at the door. So there are so many disturbances around us in Kali Yuga that is not possible for us to continuously meditate silently. That meditation will be broken. Right? We saw how Vishwamitra's meditation was broken by the sound of Menaka's anklets, right? So any kind of sound vibration will break our silent meditation, and it's not possible to have complete silence around us unless we are in the forest. Even in the forest, there is not going to be complete silence. So for these reasons, it's not possible to follow it in Kali Yuga. Now let's come to Treta Yuga. What is the problem in doing fire sacrifices, yagyas, perfection in Kali Yuga?
You have to say something to light the fire.
Yes, we have to chant certain mantras when we do the yagyas. So we are not able to chant those mantras in Treta Yuga. What's the problem?
Now Brahmins are not available that much. Professional Brahmins are
Yes, we don't have such highly qualified Brahmins in the Kali Yuga. Previously in the Treta Yuga, when the Brahmins would do the fire sacrifices, the yagyas, there would be 4 very highly qualified Brahmins sitting on the 4 directions. And just by chanting mantras, they could light the fire. Right? Just by chanting mantras, if they have sacrificed an animal in the yagya, then they chant a mantra and they bring the dead animal back to life. And that animal gets the benefit of having done some service to the Lord. And at the same time, the animal gets a brand new, fresh, youthful body. Okay. That's why in our Shastra, animal sacrifice was allowed in the previous ages. That's because the Brahmins could bring the animal back to life. But in Kali Yuga, it is not allowed because nobody has the potency to bring a dead animal back to life just by chanting the mantras. Now a Brahmin, if he wants to light the fire, he needs a matchbox. He needs something artificial to light the fire, right? We don't have such highly qualified Brahmins anymore in Kali Yuga. Then deity worship. Why we cannot perfect deity worship in Kali Yuga? What are the standards of deity worship?
And now it is not possible to follow the negative.
Why it's not possible?
It's possible that they cannot follow that many restrictions and all while doing
The
daily work.
Yeah,
So
we
what
cannot
kind of
follow the
restrictions?
rituals.
What kind of rituals? What kind of restrictions?
They have to do
You have to
early
get-
morning and before 6 o'clock. They cannot do 4 o'clock like that. They have to wake up and do all the
Time.
Also, there's a certain way of sitting on a certain grass that you have to sit.
Okay, no,
Four
sitting on a
regulative
certain kind of grass
principles
is a silent
we fail
meditation.
to follow.
What was that?
We fail to also follow the 4 regulative principles very properly, and that's the reason we are not supposed to touch the deity when we are not washed. Like there are particular reasons where Prabhupada had said, like we have to be very like pavitra kind of atmosphere should be there. We should be very pious, and we should be always clean, neat, and tidy while going near to the deity, and it should always be clean as per the standards of Vaishnava.
Yes, yes, correct.
Like offering prasad every day and, following certain-
Niyama.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. For example, in Jagannath Puri, every day they offer 56 items to the deities, isn't it? So the standards of deity
Yes.
worship, if you strictly go according to the Shastra, they are very, very high. We just discussed these points. So for us in Kali Yuga, it is not possible to follow such high standards. All of us have deities at home, and we are.
In my opinion,
Yes.
the Treta Yugas, the extract of the Treta Yugas, this is also affected to Dwapar Yuga, because deity means any statue or anything which we use to pray for the deity, means that there should be the Pran Pratishtha. The Pran Pratishtha is a process why any statue convert into the deity, that Brahman Pratishtha with the 15 days process of the Brahmanas and the mantras and all, So it is not possible now because no one speaks the right pronunciation even though. So that's why they are not exactly the deities which is related with the, whereas it contains the Pran Pratishtha, the pranas, and we can worship for those people. So that is one of the most important reason. In any temple, they just put the statues, just make the formalities. No one knows that what is the Pran Pratishtha basically for putting any statue.
Yes,
So
yes,
that is the
correct.
reason that people are very much disconnected with this all.
Yes, that Brahmins cannot perfectly pronounce the mantras anymore. There would be some mistakes in the pronunciation.
They even though don't have knowledge of the deities. If you ask any Brahmin sitting in temple, what is Durga? He will not able to explain you what is Durga. So
Yeah.
just they have opened the temples and statues, and that's just decorations. So that's why our any prayer or any puja is not affected exactly what for we are doing this all.
Yes, yes. But there are a few ancient temples where still there is, they have been installed according to the, yes. Not all, we
Yes.
cannot say 100%, but there are still a few genuine temples where the installation was done according to, and it is still effective, right? But yes, the majority of them, as you said, is the Brahmins are not so highly qualified. Okay. Now let us come to Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, as we have discussed previously, the recommended process is Harinam Sankirtan. And because the Kali Yuga is such a fallen age, there are no rules and regulations to chant the holy name. One doesn't have to be a Brahmin to chant. One doesn't have to receive initiation also to chant. Anybody, even a small child, can chant the holy name of the Lord. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a conversation, as we discussed before, between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. So Sukadeva Goswami has given a long list of the faults of Kali Yuga, how Kali Yuga is such a fallen age. And at the end of it, then Maharaj Parikshit, he is very, very worried. And he says that, oh, if Kali Yuga is such a fallen age, then how will the people realize God? He is very concerned, and out of concern, he asks this question. And then Sukadeva Goswami says, he says, Kaler doshe nidhe rajan, ashtihi eko mahan guna, kirtanad eva krishnasya, mukta sangha param brajet. So what does that mean? He says, Kaler dosha nidhe rajan. Although this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Ashtihi eko mahan guna. It has one great quality. What is the great quality that it has? Kirtanat eva Krishnasya. Just by chanting the holy name of Krishna, Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet. You can attain Mukti and go to the Param Vrajet, go to the topmost destination. So although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, here Mukti is the easiest. It's the easiest for us. And that's the reason why even the demigods are desire to get one human birth in Kali Yuga on our planetary system, which we already have. Yes. So this is the great quality of Kali Yuga. So here we have some Shastric references to the same. Let us only read the translations. Manjari, can you read the translation, please?
Yes, Mataji. This one, right? Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yes.
Yeah. Translation. Whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dwapar Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
So this is one Shastric proof of the same. Let us see one more.
Yeah. Shall I?
Yes, translation.
Whatever is achieved by meditation in Satya Yuga, by the performance of sacrifice in Treta Yuga, and by the worship of Lord Krishna's lotus feet in Dwapar Yuga, is obtained in the age of Kali by simply glorifying the name of Lord Keshava.
So this is from this quote is from the Puranas. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Translation.
In this age of Kali, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name of Lord Hari.
So see this, here it is said 3 times, no? Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama. 3 times. Eva Kevalam. There is no other way in Kalu, in the age of Kali. Nasteva, 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 right? So there is no other means, there is no other means, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. Harer Nama. So name of Lord Hari. Who is Hari?
Lord Vishnu.
Lord Vishnu, Krishna, yes. And what does it mean? What does it mean?
Who takes away all the sins.
Yes, he takes away everything that is inauspicious for our spiritual well-being. Not only sins, anything that is inauspicious for our spiritual well-being, he will take away. So that's why his name is Hari. Okay, let's go to 3.11.
Devan bhavayatanena he deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha kreyah paramavapsyatha.
Translation.
The demigod being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by the cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will regain for all.
So here Krishna is talking about the system of cosmic cooperation, right? The system, the principle of exchange. We satisfy the demigods, we satisfy the devatas, and the devatas satisfy us. Now, who are these devatas? These devatas are the empowered administrators of the material world. Just as how we may have a labor minister, an external affairs minister, then we have a transport ministry, right? So we have different ministers for different departments who take care of different departments like that. These devatas are the administrators of the universe. They are taking care of different departments. So we have somebody who's in charge of the sun, of water, of the rains, right? So we have Surya Dev, we have Indra Dev, like that. We have different demigods who are in charge of different departments. They provide our different necessities. So when we want rains, then we depend on Lord Indra Dev. When we want knowledge, then Goddess Saraswati. When we want money, then Goddess Lakshmi. So like that, these are different administrators. So here what Krishna is saying, that you satisfy the devatas, and then the devatas, when they are pleased with you, then they will satisfy you. Just like how we pay taxes to the government, and then the government uses these taxes to give us facilities. They build roads, they build bridges, and they give us the facilities. So there is a cooperation between the two parties. One of Krishna's names is Yagyapati, right? Yagyapati means what?
The head of the yagna.
Yes, he's the
Patis.
ultimate beneficiary. He's the ultimate beneficiary of the yagyas. So although we do the yagyas, ultimate benefit, the one who's ultimately getting the benefit is Lord Krishna. Okay,
Benefit of
3.12.
offers.
Sorry?
Benefit of offers. What offers we are giving in the
Yes,
yajna?
yes, exactly. Yes, the offering ultimately goes to Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. Okay, 3.12.
Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena yevasaha.
Translation.
In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, that is sacrifice, will supply all the necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
So now Krishna is saying that if we do not cooperate in this system, then we are considered to be a thief, he says. Why? Because we are enjoying the facilities, but we are not making we are not doing something to express our gratitude. It's not a payment, right? When we do the yagyas, it's not a payment that we are doing to the demigods, because what can we pay them? They are living in a condition that is much more opulent. We saw, no, the 3 planetary systems, and they are living in a condition that is far more opulent than us. So there is nothing that we can do to pay them for what they are giving us. But when we do the yagyas, then we are expressing our gratitude. And Krishna says that one who does not do this, then he is a thief. Why he is a thief? Because you are using the facilities, but we are not making a payment. We are not paying for the oxygen, the air, the light, the water. We are not paying for it. So therefore we are a thief. And a thief can never have peace of mind, isn't it? Okay, let's read this translation.
Yeah. One in the Grahastha order of life should daily worship the sages by Vedic study, the forefathers by offering the mantras, Swadha, the demigods by chanting Swaha, all living entities by offering shares of one's meal, and human beings by offering grains and water. Thus, considering the demigods, sages, forefathers, living entities, and human beings to be manifestations of my potency, one should daily perform these 5 sacrifices.
So especially for us, 5 Mahayagyas or 5 sacrifices are recommended to be performed. We owe especially to 5 categories of people. We owe the demigods, the sages, the forefathers, other living entities, and human beings. What do we owe the demigods? What are we taking from the demigods?
Water, sun,
Yes.
air,
Yes.
all the 5 elements.
Correct. So we are taking these facilities from the devatas. What do we take from the sages?
Their knowledge.
Knowledge,
guidance.
yes. Knowledge we take from the sages. From our forefathers, what do we get?
Inheritance.
Inheritance, yes. We have got this birth, this body, right? Only because of our forefathers. Other living entities, what do we get? Are we dependent on other living entities or no for some of our necessities?
Yeah, like
So maybe food, clothing, shelter, we are dependent on other living entities for that.
That comes under human beings because somebody is making our clothes, somebody is growing our food. So that is other human beings. But other living entities who are not human beings, what do we get from them?
Like cow gives us milk.
Exactly. Cow gives us milk, then?
Bees gives us fruits and
we get honey from the bees. Yes, we get wool from the sheep. So like that, we are dependent on other living entities, and human beings also. We have just discussed how somebody is growing our crops, somebody is making our clothes. So, so these are the 5 categories whom we are dependent on. And how do we repay the debts to these 5 people? We repay the debts by doing Pancha Maha Yagya. Now, what are these Pancha Maha Yagyas? So see here, demigods, the debt of the demigods can be liquidated by doing fire sacrifices, okay, which we have just discussed. When we offer oblations with ghee in the fire sacrifice, then we please the demigods. It's not a payment, it's like it's an act of gratitude to the demigods. Then how do we repay the sages? By studying the Vedas. Because when we study the Shastra, when we study the books, then the sages are pleased automatically. They are happy when we read the Shastra. So sages' debt can be liquidated by reading the Vedas. Our forefathers, we repay by doing the Pitra Yagya. I'm sure all of us know this, that we do the Pitra Yagya for the liberation of our forefathers, right? So forefathers, that is liquidated by doing the Pitra Yagya. Then other living entities, we are free from that debt by sharing the meals to the others. That's why we will see our in, you know, not very far away, just 2 or 3 generations before us, it would be a daily activity for our elders to take out a share of their food and feed to the crows and other living entities. No, they would go and feed the cows like that. So we have to distribute our food to the other living entities, and human beings in the form of receiving them properly in our house and feeding them, right? That's why our Indian culture is that we treat the guests as we treat them very, very respectfully. So that's the reason why, because we release ourselves from the debt of the other human beings by receiving them properly and feeding them. So these are the Pancha Maha Yagya that is especially recommended for us to follow, because we are taking from these 5 categories. And if we don't repay the debt, then we are thieves, Krishna says. So in the Manu Samhita, there is this statement. So somebody may say that, no, but I am a good human being. I never cheat anybody. I don't hurt anybody. So I'm good, right? But no matter how good or so quote unquote straightforward we may be, still every householder has 5 slaughterhouses. Manu Samhita says. What are these 5 slaughterhouses? The hearth, the grinding stone, the broom, the mortar and the pestle, and the water vessel. Just by using these 5 items, we are killing other living entities, right? When we are grinding something, when there is a fire burning, when there is water in a pot, when we are sweeping the floor, and when we are using the pestle and the mortar, some living entities are being killed. It's you cannot avoid it. So we cannot say that I'm living a life free of sin. I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat animals, so I'm living a life free of sin. No, just because we are a householder, we are grihasthas, we are using these 5 articles. These are the 5 slaughterhouses in every house. 3.13.
यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणान्.
Translation.
The devotees of the Lord are released from all kind of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment rarely eat only seed.
So see, the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is first offered for first for sacrifice. What does that mean? When we offer the food to the Lord and then we eat the food, then we are eating prasad. So now that plate of food in front of you is free from sin, right? But then what Krishna says, those who prepare food for personal sense gratification, I am cooking, I am preparing some food and I am eating it for my own enjoyment, then they verily eat only sin. So when we don't offer the food, even if it is vegan or vegetarian, even if it is just fruit, right? Even then, without offering to the Lord, if I eat it, then I'm eating sin. I'm not eating that apple, I'm eating only sin. So just by consuming food which is not prasad, I am incurring sin, sinful reactions. So we should not think that, okay, I'm a vegetarian, I don't hurt anybody, I don't cheat anybody, so I'm free from sin. No, just by eating food which is not offered to the Lord, we are eating sin. So that's why it's very, very important that we offer the food to the Lord. Whatever we cook, of course, it has to be vegetarian. It has to be without onion and garlic, because Krishna does not eat meat and he does not eat onion and garlic, right? These are foods in the mode of passion and ignorance. It's tamoguna and rajoguna. We offer to the Lord only food which is in the mode of goodness, sattva guna food. So we prepare the food and then we offer it to the Lord, and then we take the remnants. So whatever sin is there in that food, why? Because some living entities have lost their lives while that food was prepared. We grinded something, we cooked it in the fire, we have used water in preparing that food. So because of that, some living entities have lost their lives in the preparation of that food. And when we eat it without offering, we are eating only sin, because who is going to pay for those living entities who have lost their lives in that fire, in that water, in the cooking? Who is going to pay for it? Somebody has to take the karma for it, right? But when we offer it to the Lord, then the Lord takes away all the sinful reactions which is there in the food, because he has accepted it. So what is left for? We are only eating what the food has left, what the Lord has left behind. It is, we say no jhuta. So it is the Lord's remnants that we are eating. So now that plate of food is free from sin. But if we do not offer the food to the Lord Krishna, very clearly he is saying that those who prepare food for their personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So if you are not offering your food already, please offer your food to the Lord and then you can consume it. And you will see the difference it makes to your consciousness. It will change the way you think, your personality. It will help you in your sadhana. Those who are chanting, it will help you chant better rounds. When you offer the food, you will see how it brings about a drastic change in your personality for the better.
Is there any code of conduct for offering food? Some process, some mantras, something?
Yes, there are. There are some prayers that we say. I will share the prayers in the group. And what we do is, when we prepare the food, as I said, it has to be vegetarian without onion, garlic. After we prepare the food, we have a separate plate for the Lord, right? We cannot offer it to the Lord in the plate in which we eat. So we buy a new plate, keep a separate plate. We transfer the food that is cooked in that plate. We keep it in front of the Lord. And then we chant those mantras. We put some tulsi. The Lord will not offer anything that does not have tulsi. So it is very, very important that if you don't have tulsi leaf, then you get tulsi powder. Here in Chile, at least, it's very hard to get fresh tulsi. So you can use tulsi powder. If you don't have tulsi powder, I can give it to you. So those who are in India, tulsi is very easy to get. So you offer it with the tulsi. And if there is no tulsi available and you still want to offer it, then you mentally offer tulsi. You say her name 3 times and you mentally invoke her name, and then you offer it to the Lord. Okay. So there are, yes. And then we keep it in front of the Lord. We chant some mantras. If you don't know the mantras, then you chant the Panchatattva mantra and the Hare Krishna mantra. And you request the Lord in your mind, oh, my dear Lord, I have brought this for you. Please accept it. You leave it there on the altar for 5 or 10 minutes. And then after that, you take it back, you transfer the contents, you wash the Lord's plate, wipe clean, and then you can enjoy your prasad.
Is this food prayer is like Brahmatanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam? Is it from our Shastra?
No, they are a set of different prayers. I will send them to you. I will share it in the group.
Okay.
Actually, there are many prayers related. There
I
are
think
many
we
prayers.
said in the earlier chapter, the pranaya swaha, apanaya swaha. We usually chant those mantras before offering food, right?
No, I think those swaha mantras are when we offer it in the yagya.
No, we shut the eyes and we take that bhav of offering food to God, and when you say those pranaya swaha, apanaya swaha, that's what I've seen it in India.
Even in necessary also when offering 5 mantras.
Okay, there may be many methods, but the Vaishnava system that I am aware of, is there are different set of prayers. Should I show it to you right away? Do you want to see it now?
And ma'am, what if someday you are not cooking and you have a takeaway outside? Does it become a ritual or a compulsion?
Okay, so this is something that is, it's like chanting, right? You start from one round and slowly you go higher and higher. So sometimes when you're eating food outside, which is not recommended, see, food that is eaten outside, we cannot offer to the Lord. Why? Because the person who has cooked in a restaurant has cooked the food because of money. His intention is money, right? He wants to earn money. He has not cooked out of love for the Lord.
Love.
So what is cooked by non-devotees, we do not offer to the Lord, but we are eating it because we like to eat and we want to eat. So at least you say, my spiritual master has taught us this, that you say Om Shri Vishnu thrice before eating it. It's not prasad, but at least it is free from sin.
So I have seen people who daily offer lunch or dinner which is cooked at home, and when they don't cook it, they offer some sweet or sugar or jaggery instead of that.
Yes, you can. Yeah. See, the point about home deities is, you know what, that they are your home deities, and the people at home, they set the standard of the deity worship. So as we discussed before, deity worship, the standard is very, very high. So home deities, the people who are taking care of the deities, they set their standard. So in some houses, they only offer water. Some people, they may offer water with fruit. Some people may offer lunch, dinner, breakfast. So depends, you set the standard of the deity worship in your house, okay? But once you set the standard, at least you make sure that the standard doesn't go below that standard. That's okay.
I've seen some families keeping a datun also in front of God in the morning.
Yes, yes. Correct. Deity worship means, yes, it's like taking care of a child, you know, brush the teeth, wake them up, then give them something to drink, then give them a bath, wear fresh clothes. So deity worship is like taking care of a child. But as I said, the members of the house, they set the standard of their home deity worship. It's not like the deities in a temple where the standards are different.
True, yeah.
It is basically only for those deities they have processed with the pran pratishtha. They feel like they just go somewhere, they just book the reservation of seat also, you know. So that is entirely different concept. Like it is a living body within a home.
Yes. So the point is that in the house we can set our standards, but in the temple there is a certain standard that they should follow. Okay, so because we are householders and we have responsibilities, at the same time, we don't want to eat sin, right? Imagine you're eating food, but you're eating only sin. You're not eating dal and rice, you're eating sin. I mean, and Krishna clearly says that. So we don't want to eat sin. So we offer it to the Lord and then we eat. Okay, small children, we teach them. You say Krishna Arpanam, Krishna Arpanam, Krishna Arpanam 3 times and then you eat. So somewhere we make a beginning, right? But that doesn't mean we are at the same standard. Like we started chanting 1 round, or we are doing Krishna Arpanam 3 times. But for the next 5 years, we are going to do the same thing. No, we have to also progress in our spiritual life. Let's not stagnate and remain at the same level. So for a beginner, we can say that, yes, you put the food in a plate and you request the Lord, oh my dear Lord, I have brought this thing for you. Please accept it. With tulsi.
Now the question that because the Lord has given the portfolios to different devotees, you know, for different purpose of that. Like Annapurna is we used to say the mother of this all food and this all sections, you know.
Yes.
Then suppose while eating, we offer the food to Vishnu or Krishna or that way. So we should not consider the Annapurna between these all. Like some mantras with the food, like Annapurna, Sadapurna, Sankar, Vallabhe, Gyan, Vairagya, Bhiksha Dehum Parvati. So some, you know, because the different shapes, they have the mantras. We directly, suppose we offer to the Lord Krishna or Vishnu, or then there are the portfolios will be, you know, overruled like that.
No, it's not overruled. The portfolios are included in that. Why? Because even the demigods are devotees of the Lord. Even the demigods, the devatas, because we see Krishna says that I have sent for the devatas. So when Krishna is saying that I have sent for the devatas, that means the devatas are also devotees of the Lord. Just like Hanuman and Lord Ram, right? When we
Perfect.
worship Lord Ram, Hanuman is automatically pleased. Do we have
Okay.
to separately worship Hanuman? No, when we worship Ram, Hanuman is automatically pleased. So devatas are devotees of the Lord. So when it's like watering the root of the plant. When we water the root of the plant, then automatically the other parts of the plant are nourished. We don't separately have to water the leaf, the branches, the fruits. We don't do that. We just directly offer the water to the root. So when we worship Krishna, we are watering the root of the plant. So everybody is
Okay.
automatically satisfied.
No, it is general concept, you understand. But there is not conduct like this, that we should have the devotee portfolio person should include in that type of mantras or that type of worship or something like that. No.
No, it's not necessary, and it's not intelligence also. Krishna will reveal more about the demigods in the future, later chapters. He reveals more and more about how one who worships the demigods separately is less intelligent, because there everything is not included. Okay, but we will see that more in the future chapters.
Okay.
So here in the chat, Supriyo has shared the pictures for offering food to Krishna. Can you all see that?
No, we cannot see the picture.
No, in the chat he has written.
Yes, I have shared in the chat.
In the chat box, you have
I
those.
offer every day fruits.
Okay, you offer fruits every day?
Yeah, water and curry shakar. That is, I have separate vessels, kept plates, silver plates for God. So
Okay,
that is enough of
that you are
food is
eating.
necessary every day.
Yeah, but the food that you are eating, what about that? Are you not offering that? Are you eating sin?
But that's with kanda, no? Onions.
Yes. So if
we cannot offer that.
Yeah, we
So
cannot
I
offer that.
everyday
So now
fruit.
what is the solution?
Whichever fruit I get, I offer to God.
Okay, but the point is that every day you are eating sabzi roti with onion, then you are eating sin.
So now everybody is
So
eating
now,
that one.
Now give up onions.
So especially, so I have to give up that.
Okay, so now let's try to understand that we are eating onion and garlic. Okay, when I say we, I don't eat. Okay, I'm just saying in general. So when somebody eats onion and garlic and they are not able to give it up right away, this is something that we cannot do. No, today I decide no more onion and garlic. Now it is possible for some people, but not everybody can give it up in one day. So now what to do? Okay, you have prepared some vegetable with onion and garlic, but you have some rice, you have some chapati, right? At least the rice.
Yeah, there are many vegetables without onion and garlic which we make.
Yeah, so whatever it is which you have without onion and garlic, that at least you offer to the Lord, even if it's just plain white rice chapati with half a spoon of ghee. And of course, tulsi. Tulsi, we should not offer anything without tulsi, okay? If you
I have
tulsi,
plenty of tulsi plants in my house.
Okay, so you offer it and then you eat. Then slowly, as we progress in our spiritual life, we will not have the desire to eat onion and garlic anymore. Because now we have developed what is called as higher taste, which we discussed in the previous class. No, higher taste. The way we have to engage our senses in devotional service, then we are no more attracted to the lower tastes. We saw that in the previous class. So as we progress, then as we develop higher taste, there will be a point when you look at onion with disgust, you're like, oh, how could I ever eat this at some point of my life? How did I even eat this? You will not be able to even look at that onion and garlic anymore. That stage you will come to. Okay, I'm saying from personal experience. I also used to eat onion and garlic before, but after I gave up onion and garlic, I can feel the difference in my body. Okay, you feel the difference.
It will take little time.
Your body, you feel so different. You feel so positive. The vibrations are different. It's very different. So when you eat only prasad, it makes a lot of difference to your consciousness and also the consciousness of your family members. See, the woman in the house, she has to take it in her hands, no, to offer the food, because the family members, they are eating. But if the woman of the house is offering and giving them prasad, even the guests, when they come to the house, just by giving them prasad, you are benefiting them spiritually. They don't even know. They are getting agyata sukriti. They are not even aware. Somebody may be a hardcore atheist. Maybe he hates God. He doesn't believe in God. But because he's eating prasad, just by taking that prasad, he is getting purified. That is agyata sukriti. He's not aware of it, but he's getting the benefit. So you can help a lot of people also by offering your food.
So we should have Jain food.
Not Jain food. Jains don't have anything that, they don't have carrots, they don't have peas.
Without honor.
They don't have potatoes also.
Yeah, the Jain concept. See, Jains, their concept is
underground growth. Food.
Why? Because you're taking the root of the plant. When you take the root of the plant, you're killing the plant because you're taking the root. But when you pluck an apple from the tree, you're not killing the tree. So their concept is, I don't eat anything that is the root because I don't want to kill the plant. But Vaishnava concept is higher than that. Vaishnava concept is, yes, I am killing, but because I'm offering it to the Lord, it is free from sin. I am not concerned about saving somebody's life or not killing or killing. That's not my concern. My concern is what pleases the Lord. He will take care of everything else. I'm just eating Krishna's juta. That's all. But we offer to Krishna that which he likes to eat. We cannot force him to eat that which he does not like to eat. I cannot say, okay, I like to eat chicken, so I'm offering you chicken, Krishna. No, he will not eat chicken. Okay. So Vaishnava concept is, you eat anything, whatever you eat is, if it is prasad, it is free from sin. Full stop. Okay. Can we proceed?
Yes.
So see, when there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic. Now we know very well what is a vaccine and what is an epidemic, especially in this COVID time. So when we take prasad, prasad is like a vaccination for us to help us protect from the external impurities. It protects us. So food offered to the Lord and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. By accepting prasadam, we immunize ourselves from the contaminations of the material world. So prasad is very, very important. See, Prabhupada, when he went to the West, he had no finances, right? And there were times when he would have just one apple, and he would have some visitors. That one apple also, he would offer it to the Lord, and then he would cut it. And whatever he had, he would distribute pieces of that one apple to his guests. And with that, just that one apple, which was prasad, he got more and more followers. More and more people were coming to him, and they were interested in following Krishna consciousness. So there was an article that I read, no? The 5 apples that changed the world. What do you think are the 5 apples that changed the world? Anybody can say? Adam's apple, Adam and Eve. Adam ate the apple that was a forbidden fruit, right? So that brought about a revolution. And then which other apple? An apple that brought a scientific revolution was
Newton.
The law of gravity.
Yes, the law of gravity. Yes. So Newton's apple also changed the world. Then which other apple has changed the world?
The Apple life.
The Apple computers.
Apple computers. Yes, exactly. Steve Jobs. The apple of Steve Jobs brought about a revolution in technology. Yes. Then which other apple? Munesh Prabhu, you're on mute. I cannot hear you.
No, I was only appreciating the name of Apple computers, just,
Okay.
I don't have example.
And another apple that has revolutionized the world? Okay, the Beatles had a company called Apple Records. Okay, so that brought about a revolution in the music culture. They brought in the pop culture, the Beatles. And the 5th apple is Prabhupada's apple that has brought about a spiritual revolution in the world. So these are the 5 apples that have changed the world. Okay. So here you can see pictures on the left. Here people are cooking and eating for their own pleasure. So Krishna says that this is sin. But on the other side, consuming and distributing food that has first been offered to Krishna as a sacrifice. Now this is prasad. This is transcendental food. So see, same thing. The activity is the same, right? Cooking and eating, that activity is the same. But how we have made it transcendental, how we have converted an ordinary activity to a devotional service. Just by offering that food to the Lord, we have now made it a devotional service. 14.
अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न सम्भवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः.
Translation.
All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties.
So now we are going to see a cycle, very, very interesting, okay? Here again, Krishna is continuing about how we are indebted to the demigods because of the facilities they provide us. So see what Krishna is saying. All living entities, they subsist on food grains. So he has sent us. Now what do you need? We need food grains to survive. Okay, go and get the food grains. Now, how will we get the grains? We will get the grains from the rains. It has to rain, only then we will get the grains, right? So for the grains, you need the rains. Now, how will the rains come? Rains will come when we do the yagyas. When we do the yagyas, we are pleasing the demigods. So then Lord Indra will send us rains. Now, how do you know these yagyas? These yagyas are a part of our prescribed duties. We saw no how we have to do those Pancha Mahayagyas. Every human, it's the duty of all of us to do those Pancha Mahayagyas. So these yagyas are a part of our prescribed duties. Now, how do we know what are our duties? That Krishna explains in the 15th verse. Let's
Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवम् तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्.
Translation.
Regulated activities as prescribed in Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice.
Okay, so see in 14, Krishna said all living entities, they need what? They need grains. Grains will come from where? They'll come from the rains. How will you get rains? By doing your yagyas. Now, what are these yagyas? Yagyas are a part of our prescribed duties. How do we know what are our duties? By reading the Vedas. Where are the Vedas coming from? The Vedas are directly coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because God has spoken. We saw, no, the Guru Parampara. Ultimately, it all has come from Krishna. So the Vedas are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how Krishna is taking us through this cycle to him. So see the cycle of sacrifice that Krishna has explained in these two verses. Embodied beings subsist on grains. Grains are produced by rains. Rains depend on what? The performance of our yagyas. The yagyas are born of our prescribed duties. These prescribed duties are given within the Vedas, and the Vedas are coming from the Lord. So see how Krishna is leading us to him. This is called as a cycle of sacrifice. So see, there are three kinds of karma that are explained in the Bhagavad Gita. There are three concepts: karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma is action as per Shastra. When we do any activity according to the Shastra, then it is called as karma. Vikarma is action that is against the Shastra, forbidden actions. Vikarma, against. So that is sinful. Then akarma is inaction. Inaction means devotional service. So inaction, in the sense that when I'm offering food to the Lord, that is inaction because there is no sin in that. It's a devotional activity. So I'm free from sin. So that is called as a karma. There is a difference between your normal activities and devotional service. Good karma is not enough to take us to the spiritual world. Good karma will only take us to heavenly planets. But when we convert the good karma to a devotional service, then we can go back to the spiritual realm. So karma, vikarma, and akarma. Now there are some sections in the Gita where akarma refers to non-performance of prescribed duties, not doing, failing to do your duties. That is akarma. But in most places, akarma refers to devotional service, right? So where to use that akarma meaning depends on the context that we have to understand. So there are three kinds of karma that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita: karma, vikarma, and akarma. 3.16.
एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रियारामं मोघं पार्थ स जीवति.
My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in the human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the sense, such a person lives in a vain.
So now Krishna is saying one who does not follow this cycle of sacrifice. He just explained the cycle of sacrifice. So now he's saying one who does not follow the cycle of sacrifice, then what happens to that person? He is leading a life full of sin. Why? And he's living a life in vain. He's wasting his human life. He's wasting his human existence. Why? Because he is living only for the satisfaction of his senses. But what is the goal of our human life? We don't have to satisfy our senses. We have to satisfy the Lord. And when the Lord is pleased with you, he will take care of all your necessities. We don't have to think about what will satisfy us. That was a mistake Arjuna was making, no? When he said that, how will I enjoy? I cannot enjoy if I fight the war. So Arjuna was thinking about what will give him pleasure. He was not thinking what will make Krishna happy. What will please, if I fight the war, it will please Krishna. He's not on that platform yet when we saw his arguments, right? He was thinking about his own pleasure. But we should not think what will give us pleasure. If we please the Lord, then automatically he is going to take care of all our necessities. So see, here are some samskaras, purificatory process that is followed in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, right? And the first ever thing is the Garbhadanam samskara, which we discussed before, how the parents, before they unite for the child, they follow some samskara, some ceremony, so that they are put in the right frame of mind, and then they can attract a devotee child in the womb of the mother. So like that, there are various samskaras that are given in our Shastras. 3rd month of pregnancy, then for the protection of the mother before the childbirth. Now this has become baby shower in the modern times, yes. But previously these were samskaras, and there was a reason why these were done. Then we have the, so we'll not go into the details. There are some samskaras that are done for purification, and it is recommended in the Karma Kanda section of the Anna Prasanam. You know what is Anna Prasanam? Anna Prasanam is when the child eats food for the first time, the first solid. See, the child is on the mother's milk for 5-6 months. Yes. Here in Chile, they say 6 months. So the first time that the child eats grain or solid food, that grain that they put in the child's mouth should be Mahaprasad. So that one grain of Mahaprasad will protect the child forever. So the first food that we feed the child should be Mahaprasad, always. That is called Anna Prasanam. What do they do in Chile here? When my daughter was 6, she completed 6 months, and I went to the pediatrician. She said, now you can start with semi-solid food. And I asked her, what can I give her? She said, you have to start with beef. So imagine here in Chile, the first thing that they put in the child's mouth, the first solid food is beef. Oof, imagine. Okay, anyway. And then you have all these ceremonies, and the last ceremony is Antim Samskara, the final rituals after a person passes away. Okay. So now we come to the next section.
Here I can tell some few words. No?
Yes.
It is very important for this particular Garbhadhanam Sanskaram, this Garbhadhanam, because everybody understands that these all are the ceremonies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But simply understand that when we go to buy a shirt, We select many shirts and color and prices and many things here. But while the conceiving a child, no mother and father understand that this child is going to serve the society. What sort of a child I want? So basically, code of conduct for the every mother and father is the development of a child in 9 months in the womb. That conduct should be maintained. That atmosphere should be maintained. That they have to read the code of conduct of child before getting any conceivement or pregnancy. That what sort of child they want.
Correct.
Because once the child will come out, it's the 9 months stuff, prepared stuff, then it is very difficult to change him artificially, you know. Now, every child when comes, they love to dance, they love to, very attracts, very easily to the drinks and all addictions and all. Why it is? Previously, in the, if you can see in the last generation, you will find that advocate or you will find all the members of the sons, and I mean the generation is coming towards advocates, 3-4 advocates in the house. You will find it. Doctors, you will find the next generations coming of doctors and doctors. But now you can find in every house the next generation, they don't like the parents' work basically. You know, because this all affected of the 9 months, they prepared the material of the child before coming out. It prepared in that atmosphere, which is not admittable basically for that. We cannot control. Just a 1 year, 2 year child, and we just say 3 year child, oh, वो तो कहना ही नहीं मानता है, इस वेरी बहुत जिद्दी है, बहुत ये है, वो है, तो वो कहीं और से थोड़ी आया है. वो that was all the 9 months preparation. So code of conduct of pregnancy, how to what's the controls we should have on conceivement and how the 9 months child we want. That is very important subject in the Garbhanam. Not only the rituals or some formality of events or nothing, but basically it was because Abhimanyu was a very much example in our Mahabharata, that everything he learned in the 9 months. So that is most important for this, you know, to understand this particular subject. You know?
Yes, correct. Correct. So what happens is parents may be demoniac, but they want their son to become Prahlad. So that will not happen because the consciousness of the parents determines what kind of soul they are attracting in the womb, right? If we want, so Garbhadharam Samskara helps us to put the couple in the right frame of mind. So a child who is conceived on a Saturday night over a glass of whiskey in a discotheque, that consciousness of that child is going to be very different from a child who's, you know, who has been conceived after the couple have chanted, say, some 16 rounds or 64 rounds in a day. It's different, correct?
So here is the very important role of a female, because Dharti, she is a Dharti basically. If the seed is supposed somewhere defective a little bit, but we protect the Dharti, we give the treatment to Dharti and we can get a good tree and good fruits. So it is very much important, the role of females here basically, to control the coming up generation who are going to serve next society, you know.
Yes, correct. Just like Karna, no? Karna, see, by birth, Karna from the Mahabharata, his mother is Kunti, who's a pure devotee. His father is Suryadev, right? Even then, you see Karna by nature, he's not so pure. He's the most controversial character in the Mahabharata, right? And he has made some mistakes. He has made some mistakes in the Mahabharata, and for which he had to pay a price. So why? Because when he was conceived, he was conceived under anger and fear. When Kunti invoked the sun god, and then she said, no, I just recited the mantra because I was trying and I wanted to see if the mantra worked. And then Suryadev has come, and then she says, no, now you go back. So now Suryadev is angry because she has called him. And he says that you have called me and I cannot go like that. I have to, you know, and that mantra was especially to have a child. It was not to give any blessing. It was especially to have a child. So he says that it cannot be that now you have used the mantra and it just cannot go in vain. So Suryadev is angry and Kunti is a fear. So under the consciousness of fear and anger, Karna was conceived. That's why he's such a mixed personality. Although by birth he belongs to a Vaishnava and a demigod, but the consciousness was different. That's why he's such a complex character, no, Karna in the Mahabharata. So the consciousness of the parents while they conceive the child is very, very important.
But she was conscious because she was an unmarried girl, right? And then for her to have a child, in those days was something
Yes,
bad.
but she used the
acceptable
mantra.
by the
She,
society.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she used the mantra, knowing fully well that the mantra is to have a child. You see?
Child.
Exactly.
And
So
then
she was
abundance
fearful.
in, yeah.
I mean, imagine the sun god is in your room. So who will not get scared? Yes. So that's why Karna is a complex character in Mahabharata. Anyway, we'll go to section 4 in the next class. I just wanted to discuss something that we did with, quickly we will finish this with, I did it for slot 2, but we didn't do it here. So we spoke about Mithyacharis, right? Remember Mithyacharis? So here in the Bhagavatam, there is this very nice section which talks about these 5 kinds of Mithyacharis. It's very, very valid for us in the current situation because we have so many such show bottle spiritualists. Show bottle means they appear to be spiritual, but they are not. Like they're cheaters, the Mithyacharis. So there are 5 categories that the Srimad Bhagavatam has mentioned already 5,000 years back. Vyasadeva has put it into writing. So there are 5 kinds. What are they? Vidharma, Paradharma, Upadharma, Chaladharma, and Abhasa. Vidharma means irreligious principles as religion. So the Vidharmis, they will present a concept which is not religion, but they present it as religion. For example, at the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were some people who would tell that, no, to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, you have to be born only in a Brahmin family. No, you should belong to a very high caste. But then that is irreligious. They are promoting an irreligious principle as religion because there is no rule and regulation to chant the Maha Mantra in Kali Yuga. So this is an example of Vidharma. Then Paradharma, religious principles introduced by others. Wait, let me see my notes.
I think we talked about this before.
We did it in slot 2. We have not done it in slot 1. Did we do it?
I think so.
No. Maybe you have attended the slot 2 class last time, Ayush.
No, we haven't done in this class.
Okay. So Paradhara means a hoaxer, right? One who's, okay, I'll give you an example. There was this class that I was hearing and this person said that there was this couple who approached a senior devotee, a sannyasi in the temple, and he says that, okay, we have a son and he had this relationship with his girlfriend and now the girlfriend is awaiting his child, right? And now the girl's parents have approached the boy's parents and they say that now we have to get them married because my daughter is pregnant. So then these boys' parents, their problem is what? They are telling that we belong to a high caste, we are Brahminical, we belong to a Brahmin family, but that girl is not from a Brahmin family. So what kind of a principle are they promoting if they are high caste and they are Brahmins, but the activity that their son has done is not Brahminical at all? So here they are promoting religious principles introduced by others, but they themselves are not following that standard. Okay, so that is Paradharma. Then Upadharma, a new type of religion created by one who is falsely proud and who opposes the principles of the Vedas, self-certified gods. We have so many of this now in India especially, right? India is the leading manufacturer of such show bottle spiritualists. Not only is India the leading manufacturer, India is also the leading exporter of such Mithyacharis now, currently. Okay? So self-certified gods mean they say, oh, I am God. Okay, all of you should worship me. But Prabhupada said, if anybody says that they are God, then first you tell them to lift the Govardhan mountain and show me. Don't try to say that you are God. God is that person who does not grow old. If your hair is growing white, if your tooth is shaking, you are what kind of a God are you? You cannot even control the urge to urinate and pass stool. What kind of a God are you? How are you going to control the planetary systems, right? So Upadharma means self-certified gods. Then Chala Dharma. Okay, 1 second, let me. Chala Dharma, interpretation of one's jugglery of words. So sometimes people, they interpret the Shastras in such a way that, they present it in a very attractive, they are juggling with the words, but they are not presenting the meaning as it is. They have twisted the meaning and they are presenting something else. That is called as Chala Dharma. And Abhasa, a pretentious religious system manufactured by one who willfully neglects the prescribed duties. Okay, we'll see some stories to explain Abhasa and the other things also. Can you identify this character on the screen who looks like Krishna? Somebody who
Paundraka.
claims that he is Krishna when Krishna was present on the planet itself.
Is Krishna only, right?
Paundraka. Bole dao
One
na.
Krishna and the other is
He's faking. It's not the real one.
Paundraka.
Paundraka. Yes, Paundraka, the false Vasudev. You can see this chapter in detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is not something that is there only in Kali Yuga. Somebody is falsely claiming that they are God. There was somebody when Krishna was present on the planet itself. He is telling Krishna that I am the real Krishna. You are the false Krishna. Give up your Sudarshan Chakra. So Paundraka is telling Krishna that give up your Sudarshan Chakra. You are fake. Okay. And Krishna said, yes, of course, most certainly I will give my Sudarshan Chakra, but on your neck. And then Paundraka was finished. So this is something that is existing from the time of Dwapara Yuga only, that somebody is falsely claiming that he is God. And of course, in Kali Yuga, we see so many such cases. Then falsely interpreting the Shastra. So one devotee was telling the story of how once he went to the king of Manipur, and king of Manipur told him, oh, I know Bhagavad Gita very well. Sometimes people, they falsely claim, no, oh, I know everything in the Gita, but they would have never read the Gita. They say, I know everything. So then the king of Manipur said that I know. And then he said, okay, then what is your favorite verse from the Gita? And he says, my favorite verse is Sarvasya Chaham Hriday Shani Vishto, he says. So he says, why is this your favorite verse? And then the king of Manipur said, because I love tea. He says, tea, what has tea got to do with Bhagavad Gita? And he says, no, but it says that cha means chai. Okay, so he's saying Sarvasya chai, everybody likes tea. And what kind of tea? It should be Hriday Shani Vishto. It should be very pleasing to the Hriday. It should be very pleasing to the heart. So this is the interpretation that the king of Manipur has given to this statement from the Bhagavad Gita. But actually what it means is Sarvasya Chaham means that I am Hriday Shani Vishto, means that I am seated in the heart of every living entity, Krishna says. Sarvasya means everyone. So he is situated in the heart of all the living entities. So you see how they interpret the Shastra. They are twisting the meaning of the Shastra to give some other meaning. That is what is one kind of a Mithyachari which we saw. And the last one, which was Abhasa, a pretentious religious system. Here we can see it from the story of Prithu Maharaj. Can we read this quickly, Supriyo?
Yeah, sure. King Prithu's 100 horse sacrifices. When Prithu Maharaja was performing the last horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha Yaga, King Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the horse intended for sacrifice. He did this because of his great envy of King Prithu. When King Indra was taking away the horse, he dressed himself to appear as a liberated person. Actually, this dress was a form of cheating, for it falsely created an impression of religion. When Indra went into outer space in this way, the great sage Atri saw him and understood the whole situation. When the son of King Prithu was informed by Atri of King Indra's trick, he immediately became very angry and followed Indra to kill him, calling, wait. King Indra was fraudulently dressed and a sannyasi having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Prithu considered Indra a religious man and a pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.19.11.14. Since the time, certain men with poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a false sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduces this. Verse 22.
So Abhasa, pretentious religious system, means you're pretending to be religious, but you're not religious. And this was started by King Indra himself. In order to escape being killed by King Prithu, he wore the clothes of a sannyasi. He donned the robes of a sannyasi, because a Kshatriya will never kill a sannyasi. So this has begun from there. And from that time onwards, the fall down of the sannyasis has started. So there are many people we see, they are dressed up like devotees, but their mentality, they are not devotees internally. And that's the reason why many people are moving away from religion, because they think everybody is bogus, everybody is fake. So they are moving away from religion more and more in Kali Yuga. So these are the 5 kinds of Mithyacharis. Okay, we will stop here. I'm sorry. So then if these are Mithyacharis, then what is the real religious system? Prabhupada explains, he gives some references in his purport of that Srimad Bhagavatam verse. So he has given some references. Krishna explains the real religious system is prescribed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he says in 18.66, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. This is Krishna's statement. This is considered to be the conclusion of the Gita in the last chapter. He says the real religious system is that of surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. So he says, forget everything else. Sarva Dharmam Parityaja. Just give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. So the real religious principle can be given only by God himself. Nobody else can manufacture their own religious system. Nobody can say that, in my opinion, this is dharma. No, dharma can only be given by the Lord. Nobody can say that, in my opinion. Prabhupada said, opinions don't matter. Opinion is not worth even 2 pence. What matters is the knowledge that comes directly from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So let us read the second reference, the translation, please. Supriyo?
Yeah, sure. Translation. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principle, nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the Asuras, ordinary human beings, Vidya, Adharas, and Karnas. Chanas. SP 126. Savai Pumsam Paru Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhaksaje. The supreme occupation, that is dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord.
So see, in the second reference, Krishna says that nobody can bring forth what is religious principle. Even the great rishis, the great sages, even though they are in the mode of goodness, they also cannot ascertain what is the real religious principle. Though even the demigods cannot. Leaders of the Siddha Loka, Siddhas are the Siddhis who have very, very advanced and they are in the higher planetary system. Even the leader of the Siddha Loka cannot. Asuras and ordinary human beings, of course, they cannot. And Vidyadhars and Acharanas, they are the musicians of the higher planetary systems. So none of these people can manufacture their own religious principle. Real religious principle can only come from God. Nobody else can invent their own rules and regulations. So then the question may be, okay, so if this is the case, then how come these cheaters, these Mithyacharis are surviving? Because they attract so many people, they receive so much donation, they receive so much property, lands are given to them in donation, right? So how come these Mithyacharis are surviving? Prabhupada was asked this question, and let us see how Prabhupada has answered this. Let's read.
Okay, I will read the answer. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, of course, to search out a guru is very nice. But if you want a cheap guru, or if you want to be cheated, then you will find many cheating gurus. But if you are sincere, you will find a sincere guru. Because people want everything very cheaply, they are cheated. We ask our students to refrain from illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. People think that this is all very difficult, a botheration. But if someone else says you may do whatever nonsense you like, simply take my mantra, then people will like him. The point is that people want to be cheated, and therefore cheaters come. No one wants to undergo any austerity. Human life is meant for austerity, but no one is prepared to undergo austerity. Consequently, cheaters come and say, no austerity, whatever you like, you do. Simply pay me and I will give you some mantra and you will become God in 6 months. All this is going on. If you want to be cheated like this, the cheaters will come.
So just see, Prabhupada is saying how these people are surviving. It's because there is a demand for them. Always demand, creates the supply, because we want cheap gurus. We don't want to follow dharma. We want to feel safe. We want a guru for our so-called satisfaction. Then we are looking for a guru who will allow us to do nonsense, and at the same time he'll accept us as his disciples. So we think we are safe. We don't realize that such a guru, sinful guru, he will go to hell, and he will take all his followers also to hell, right? So because we are looking for cheap gurus, then the supply is created automatically, right? So these gurus have their rate card also. They say, okay, normal darshan 50,000 rupees, then special darshan they will charge 1 lakh rupees. Then they have what do you call it, emergency darshan 2 lakh rupees. People are willing to pay that price, and they go to them, right? And he says, okay, why you want to follow, why you want to be vegetarian, why you want to offer the food, you like to eat meat, okay, you eat meat. I will give you one mantra, you eat meat and do nonsense and you are safe. No, they are not safe, but people believe them, and plus they pay them, and they think they are safe. Then after some time they are exposed, then they are going to jail. Even after they are sent to jail, they are having followers. I cannot understand, but it's going on, right? It is going on. So it's very, very important that we accept only a bona fide authorized spiritual master, not a mithyachari. Okay. So what else do we have to discuss? We'll stop here. We'll continue the next class.
So there are some who show some magic of taking out jewelry and some babhuti and all that. Those are also mithyacharis.
Yes, most definitely. There are videos in YouTube. You can see them.
Okay.
How they do it. It's all magic tricks. We don't want a magician as our spiritual master, right? We want a spiritual master who has the ability to take us to the spiritual world. So magician, there are so many magicians. We don't want a magician. So we have to be careful.
Bible was considering, Bible education in churches was considering like a very peaceful place for the worships and all. But now you will find these people, the priest, the churches, the Christendom, their people also started like this magicians, they started vibrating sounds and so many shows they do, and the people just, and you will surprise, they make in the front of the thousands of people, they reduce your 5 kilo weight in one Bible, Bible's ritual, they just reduce your 5 kilo weight in front of all people, I was surprising how the people are expecting these all things, and so many drama of the religions, the people started to impress the people. I don't understand why the people are following like this.
Yeah, yes. See, the thing is, in our material life, we like there is a sale, there is 50% off. So we want cheap things. So we are used to cheap things in our material life. That's fine.
Shortcuts.
Okay. But what happens is that looking for cheap things, we tend to extend in our spiritual life also. Now, even in our spiritual life, we are extending that we want cheap gurus. We want a guru who will allow us to do nonsense. But no, in spiritual life, there is no space. In spiritual life, as we discussed, dharma is what Krishna spoke. Nobody else can change it. If anybody who changes it, then he's a mithyachari. So we have to be very careful of these bogus people.
Exactly.
Good morning, Mataji.
Good morning, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I'm Sudha here. I want to ask you about how about the Sridi Satya Baba and Sai Baba, Satya Sai Baba?
Okay, we are not allowed to comment on a person in particular. I am not supposed to do that. We are not allowed to do that. So if you want to know about someone in particular, then you will have to do your research and see if the person meets what Shastra says. That is something that you have to research on yourself personally. I cannot comment on a particular person. Okay.
Okay, Mataji.
I can speak few words.
Not on that particular person. You can speak in general.
No particular person. No. Actually, because it is confused, because even the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, if we don't read, we don't educate for it, we can have any concern about it, anything we can think about ourselves. That is the thing. It is the same like this type of religions they made it. But basically, as my experience, I'm telling about that These are the education, basically Satya Sai Baba, Parthi, and Shirdi Sai Baba. These are the educations. If you will go for their literatures and all, it is all related with Krishna. When you see the Sai Baba's photo, you will find the Krishna's statue behind him, and Ganesha statues behind him, and all. So this is, they have just spread this our Vedic knowledge in their own way. This is nothing. They don't have their own religion. They don't have anything told about the dharmas. They never said anything for that.
See, the thing is, as long as a person says that he is the servant of God, or he is the messenger of God, or he is the son of God, it's fine. It's not against Shastric principles. But when he says that he is God, okay, when he says that he is God, then he has to prove that he is God. Krishna said that he is God, but he proved it. He showed the universal form. Okay, he showed the entire cosmic manifestation in his mouth. He lifted the Govardhan hill. Okay, so sometimes people accuse Krishna that Krishna is immoral. He is dancing with the gopis. Yes, so Prabhupada always said, don't try to imitate Krishna. He is God. You have to follow his footsteps. If you want to imitate Krishna, if you want to dance with the gopis like Krishna did, then you also have to imitate that Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill. So first you try to imitate that. Then you try to imitate his Rasa Leela. Right? Even the followers of Lord Shiva, sometimes they intoxicate themselves and they say, even Shiva has Somaras, so even I can intoxicate myself. But what Prabhupada said, okay, yes, Shiva took Somaras, but he also drank the poison from the ocean. First you do try to imitate that, then you try to imitate and try to intoxicate yourself. So we should not try to imitate great personalities. We have to follow their footsteps. And anybody who says that he is God, Prabhupada said, I'm sorry to use these words, but these are Prabhupada's words. Okay, he said, anyone who says that he is God is a dog. Okay, nobody can say that he is God. You can be a servant of God, you can be the son of God, but you cannot be God. If you are God, then you cannot have gray hair, you cannot have a loose tooth, you cannot have wrinkles on your skin. God is not that person who grows old. You cannot even prevent your hair from growing graying white. How can you control the cosmic manifestation?
Yes, exactly.
Nobody can
So
claim that he is God.
Baba never said any teachings and all that he's God or something like that. He was simply following this all our Vedic, so he's spreading that knowledge and education. That's all.
Yeah, so that is something that each one has to research. If you have faith in a particular person, then you have to research what exactly the person said and is it in tune with what the Shastra says. That's why we should know, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, we have to strictly follow them.
Yeah, it is like simply like a guru in education. He never make himself like chelas or something like that, Babas. Only that it is a simple spread of religion education. That's all.
Okay. I don't
They
know
have established
about
one university also. They have established one university also for this, and the biggest university of the music they have.
Okay.
So,
so what else do we have to discuss?
Can I say certain thing, just to address on this topic?
Mataji.
I'm very small, but when we are talking about Sai Baba and all, we should know that like in the western part of Maharashtra, they all are saints. They are meditating on the God, and hence they are just telling that you follow that way, like that, like the sir told. Exactly. That's why I just thought like I'll also share because we belong. Because in India, especially in Maharashtra, we have so many saints, like Sant Tukaram is there, Sant Namdev is there, who are doing Vitthala Vitthala, Jai Hari Vitthala, Jai Jai Ramakrishna Hari. These are all the mantras, right? Like Srila Prabhupada says us to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Likewise, they are also just giving us a mantra. But I think it's very beautiful and diversifiedly how Lord Hari is controlling and making us take his name. It's all his Leela, I guess. So just that point.
Yes, Lord Vithala also is who?
Yes. So that's the only thing. Like we all belong to our Maharashtra, not us, but they all belong to Maharashtra, and they all sent from Maharashtra.
So you're from Maharashtra.
It's all beautifully. They just attracts towards the God,
Okay.
The Navneet Chora, Nanda Kishora, that like.
Yeah, there are different forms of the Lord. right? As long as you're worshipping the correct form. So somebody may be attracted to Narsimadev, somebody may be attracted to Vithala, somebody may be attracted to Lord Chaitanya, somebody may be attracted to Lord Ramachandra. So as long as you're not worshipping a fake God, right? As long as you're worshipping Vishnu Tattva, then it's fine. Right? You worship that form of the Lord that you are attracted to. As I have said before, for example, Hanuman, he is not interested to go to Goloka because there the Lord is residing as Krishna. And Hanuman is not attracted to the Lord in the form of Krishna. Hanuman is attracted to the Lord in the form of Lord Ramachandra. So that's fine. It's right. His natural affection is for Lord Ram, and it's fine. So as long as we are not worshipping a fake God, right, a self-proclaimed God man, then it's fine. It's very much Shastric.
Perfect. Thank you very much for this all refined
Okay.
the knowledge, you know.
Okay. So thank you all very much for today's class. And I have received some of you have submitted your answer sheets. And I think you have one more week to submit. So please send them on time and stay determined. We have still a long way to go, and we have many chapters to complete. And as we go higher and higher, it is going to get more and more interesting because Krishna is going to reveal a lot of stuff, right? So let's stay in tune and be together for the next over a year or so. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
No, I want.